Hi everyone, good evening. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments for Top Tip Tuesday on Tuesday the 19th of January. And this is Wiggly, is joining you this evening, my kitten. Hi Sam, hi Diane, hi Madeline, good evening everybody. Thank you for joining so quickly. Wow, you were really fast. This evening, hi Yasmin, we are going to be talking about developing a strong sense of self-confidence and self-worth in our children. And this was a brilliant question who was asked to me by one of my clients and a fellow Montessorian at the end of last week, or maybe it was the weekend. And this is a really, really interesting question because the idea of building self-confidence and self-esteem has really, really shifted. The thinking about it has really, really shifted. I think in the past, perhaps 2-3 generations, if we count this as a third generation, and sort of perhaps 50 years, maybe even 30 years ago, it was very much like the way you boost someone up is tell them to, toughen up or man up or, I'm British, so stiff upper lip and all those things. It was very much seen as you've got to be tough to toughen someone up, to give them self-esteem and self-confidence. And then we had a big shift because we understood a lot more about how the brain works and emotions work. And then there was a big shift perhaps in the 90s and the early noughties about actually building children up, building up their self-confidence and self-esteem by speaking positively to them. And we understood from the brain works that the children need to be spoken to, we all need to be spoken to positively in order to have good self-confidence. So it sort of went the other end, the pendulum went the other end of the spectrum. And we saw a lot of excessive praise and children being praised, but from externally, not from actually what they're doing, but lots of, oh, you're so clever and you're so good and you're a good girl or you're a good boy and all of those things, which is sort of the other end of the spectrum. And now what we know, which is really, really powerful, we know from neuroscience, but Dr. Montessori knew 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, is that actually self-confidence, self-esteem grows from within. And it is something that we, as the adults, the caregivers, the educators in children's lives, we can give them this intrinsic sense of self-worth from, and this evening I'm going to focus on two things, two key areas that we focus on as Montessorians. And if anyone joins who has any other ideas, I'd love to hear them. If we have any questions, please do dive in as we go. I love to answer questions as we go through. So, building a strong sense of self-confidence and self-worth. The really amazing news is that this happens in the early years. Self-confidence is developed in the early years, and I was reading a really interesting article published by the Washington Post in 2016 that researchers had found that self-esteem is established before children start formal schooling. So the self-esteem a 5-year-old has, a preschooler has, before they go into school, that's pretty much the level of self-esteem that they will have throughout their life. So the great thing is that where are they before the age of 5? For the most part, they are in the home. They are at home or in a nursery, in a nurturing environment. And so this is where we can make the difference. And we know so much now about the importance of the first 5 years of life. And this adds even more, it underscores even more the importance of the early years, of early childhood. So let's dive in. How do we create a strong sense of self-confidence and self-worth in oneself, in our child or any children that we come into contact with, as educators or our parents, or as, for friends that come as play dates as well. It doesn't need to be our own child, it can be other people's children as well. So I'm going to focus on two areas. One is the environment, the preparation of the environment, and that's the preparation of the home space. As Montessorians, we talk about the environment, and that is basically the classroom, if we're talking about a school environment, or the home, if we're talking about the home environment. So the environment is the classroom or the school, and we're going to focus on the home environment for this evening. And then the second thing that's really, really important is the interactions that we have with our children. And we can talk, hi Mara, about the quality of our interaction. It's not that we need to say the right thing all of the time, because no one can do that. We're all human. But it's more the quality of our interaction that allows our children to feel seen and heard, which develops a strong sense of self-esteem within them. So let's begin with environment. The preparation of environment, of our home environment, needs to be prepared in such a way that the child can be learning and perfecting, learning new skills and perfecting these skills all of the time. So a young child, or any child, but we're focusing on the young child this evening. In early childhood, children need to have a simple, ordered and accessible environment. So simple means they don't need lots and lots of toys. They need the things that they are interested in at their fingertips. So ordered is in this, the child can rely that things in the same place, on the same shelf, all of the time, so they can go back to it time and time again when they feel drawn to it. And accessible means at their own height. Everything that they need at their fingertips, so that they can get what they need when they need it. And this fosters autonomy. And if they can gain this autonomy by being self-directed and getting what they need, this is so much more powerful than having to ask for an adult every time. Just something as simple as having a small jug of water and a glass of water. The child can pour their own water, or a box of tissues down low and a little mirror, so that they can wipe their nose when they need to, or they can blow their nose when they need to. This means they can do these things without adult help. And as for all of us, we gain confidence by doing things for ourselves, don't we? Our support as their adult is offered by preparing this environment so everything's accessible for them. They can rely on where everything's going to be. Everything's at their height. So if they want to pour a glass of water, they can have a glass of water. If they want to wipe the table, if there's a spill on the floor and they want to mop it up, there's a mop there at their height for it. If they're high, if there's a spill, they can take a cloth from the basket on their shelf and they can wipe it up. If you have children in the age of between 1 year old and 3 year old, this is called the golden age of practical life. And practical life it's a Montessori term, but basically it's cleaning. And children love to do cleaning, housework, particularly between the age of 1 and 3. So from when they're walking to 3 years old. And so if you can give your piccolini, your toddler, basic cleaning materials at their height, that is going to give them such a sense of satisfaction. And when we are self-directed, when we can do things for ourselves, that is how we grow this intrinsic sense of self-worth. If they can follow their interests, they develop their own capability and their own skills through their own drive and their own momentum. That is so much more powerful than us handing them things when they need it. So that's the first thing that's really, really important in the environment. Simple, ordered and accessible. And I probably say that sentence in every single life, because it's amazing how those three things, simple, ordered and accessible, just draws everything together. You know, when we have those things in the environment, the physical, this is why we always start with the physical preparation of the environment. Whenever I work with a client, whenever we do a workshop, we always, all Montessorians, we always start with the physical preparation of the environment, because when we have the environment prepared in a way that meets the child's needs, then other things can more easily slot into place, because the child isn't frustrated because they can't get what they want, because they feel more autonomy and more independence. So naturally they are able to concentrate or work on their own for that little bit longer, for 10 seconds more, because they can access what they need. We're obviously always close by for support, but their autonomy and their independence grows little by little in tandem with their capability, in tandem with their sense of self-confidence and their trust in their environment. So the physical environment, this is where we always start: simple, ordered and accessible. Now I'm going to have a sip of tea before I go on to the next point. And if anyone would like answer any questions, then please do jump in now. And the other thing is really worth mentioning about practical life, about housework or cleaning, having this available for children, is that they offer so many opportunities for practicing and developing gross and fine motor skills. And that is, when we talking of child development, it's hugely valuable. So not only are we contributing to their sense of self-worth and their self-confidence, but we are improving their gross and fine motor skills with them doing things they absolutely love as well. It's not an effort for them. It's very simple for us to prepare, and it's not an effort for them to do it as well. So that's really important to mention as well. So this twofold, the benefits there are twofold. And then moving on to the opportunities for them to do for themselves, they gain confidence through this. And also the great thing about having a simple, ordered and accessible environment is that they are able to make mistakes and overcome problems and find solutions in their own way and in their own time. So if they have their environment set up and they are perfecting using a spray bottle, and as my son used to do when he was first using the spray bottle, he would turn it towards him and would spray himself in the eye with the water. And I didn't correct him, I just noted he did, and we'd wipe his eye, and then he'd try again. He learned for himself, he overcame that for himself, that he needed to turn it round and spray the window. I mean, probably Olivia would have said, my daughter probably would have said actually at the time, but it means that he overcame that. That is a challenge, that is a struggle he wouldn't have had if that piece of material wasn't available on the shelf. He wouldn't have learnt that skill. Do you know what I mean? So these practical life skills give them little opportunities every single day to make a mistake, to feel comfortable making a mistake, and then they can either ask for support, and then we take them up to the next level so that they can try again, or they work it out for themselves. And this it's crucial. And I said in my post, one of the points I said is, do we protect them from everything? Do we not let them struggle and not let them make a mistake? The answer to that is we must let them make mistakes, but in a safe way, in a safe environment. We're still close by for support. We're not off doing our own thing because they are engaged in wiping the windows. We're still going to be close by, whether we are, I don't know, changing the bed sheets or doing the washing up, or, pottering about hanging the washing. We're still going to be around for them, but they are going to be in an environment that's, because it's accessible and feels safe and they trust it, they can make mistakes. And then they gain confidence, because over time, this sense of self-worth is, yes, things go wrong, but I can correct them, or I've got the skills, or I can ask support. I've got the confidence to ask for support to help me correct them. So this is why there's so many different ways that these practical life, this simple, ordered, accessible environment contribute to self-worth. And that third one, the opportunities to make mistakes and to try again, that's a really valuable one. I've just had a question which I'll read out. So, how do you correctly motivate and demotivate actions? What do you mean? Could you clarify, Madeline? Do you mean, how do you show a child how to do it correctly? Is that what you mean? And there might be a delay, so if you wouldn't mind just coming back and clarifying the question for me, because I want to make sure I answer the question, not what I think you mean. And what else do we have to say about the environment? Oh yes, another really important part of gaining sense of self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem in a child, is giving them the opportunity to make a difference, and making a difference in their home life. And so if you give them the tools for practical life, these tools for cleaning and for housework and for making a difference, this is a really, really powerful message, because they can see that they are making a difference in their home life. They're making a difference in their home community. And this is immensely powerful, because this really, really gains, helps them develop an understanding within themselves that they are unique, that they have a gift that no one else has to give, and that, what can I give an example of? Oh yes, okay, so a really good example is, I said that there was a spill on the floor earlier. So I said earlier there was a spill on the floor. So if, for example, there's a spill on the floor, and you could say to your child, oh, there's a patch of water on there, shall we wipe it up so no one slips over? And they go and wipe it with a cloth or a mop or what have you. When we're reminding that, when we're role modeling and doing that every day, and they're hearing that message that, oh, we want to wipe this spill up so no one else slips over and hurts themselves, this is really, really powerful for them, because they understand the difference they can make in their world, the difference they can make in their community. And I mean, this is from a very, very young child. Young children have huge amounts of empathy for other children. I remember when I was working in Cape Town, there was a 3-year-old little boy in my class, and whenever a new child would come into the class, and if they cried on separation, this other little boy would really cry as well. He had a huge amount of empathy. Hi, Tanya. So we must remember, little ones have a huge, huge amount of empathy for what other people are feeling. So if we start from the youngest age, showing how they can make a difference. A client, a family that I'm working with at the moment, when I go every day, I've suggested to him, he's 16 months old, and I suggest we go and pick flowers from the garden, and then we go through and do that. I've set up a tray with water, and so he can pour the water into the tiny little cup, and then he can pick flowers, and he picks one for his mama who's working from home, and one for papa who's working outside the home, and then his grandma's staying with him as well, and for his nanny, and then puts one on his snack table. And this, and every day he asked to do that. Every day that I come, he asked to do that with me, and it's really become part of his rhythm. And for a 16-month-old, that becomes part of his sense of value. He understands he can make a difference, because the look on the adult's face when they see that this little boy has given them a flower is absolutely priceless. And so he understands in that very small, simple way that he has made a difference, and that builds his self-confidence from within. When an adult replies to him, thank you very much, that's so beautiful, that's really kind of you. We don't need to say clever boy or good boy, anything like that. Just appreciating his work, saying thank you, is so much more powerful, and that's what comes from within. We'll talk about our interactions and the communication a bit later, but it all ties in together. So the environment, which is prepared in a simple, ordered, and accessible way, offers our children opportunities to make a difference, to be part of this community, and seeing that they can make a difference. And yes, a Montessori school, because there's mixed age groups in a Montessori school, as reflected like in home life, then everyone understands that everyone's at a different level, everyone's at a different capability, and so you help each other out naturally. An older child might help a younger child with a problem, or a younger child who's very strong in, maths, for example, might help an older child out. The age is irrelevant. The sense of community is very gentle but powerful at the same time, because you're you have this sense that that it's this beautiful web, it's this intricate web of each person having their gift to give, having their role to play, and we can recreate that in the home environment because we naturally have a mixed environment, don't we? You know, if you have siblings or you have a multi-generational household, you know, each generation has their own needs of support in a different way. So it's really powerful. We can just recreate what you see in a Montessori school, those same values in the home. Thank you so much for your question, Madeline. So you said, how do you correctly motivate and demotivate actions without praising your child? Okay, when we come to the second part, Madeline, would you mind bearing with me until I finish environment? The second part is about interaction, and we're going to talk about that, about how we intrinsically motivate without offering praise. And that's a really good question, and one that comes up a lot. So thank you so much for asking it. Let me just check, is there anything else that I want to say about environment? I've got my bullet points as ever on my pinboard behind, so I don't forget anything. Yes, and all these little bits of being able to contribute to home life and that sense of community is really powerful, because then as they go out into the world, and remember I said at the beginning, so for those who joined a bit later, a study that was published in the Washington Post was saying that self-esteem, there was this huge amount of research, a huge piece of work done on studying self-esteem and self-confidence, and it was found from this study that self-esteem is established by the age of 5. So this means that before a child even sets foot in a school, their self-esteem is more or less established of what it's going to be as an adult. Your apparently the work from this research showed that your self-esteem doesn't increase as you're an adult. Whatever you have as a child more or less stays the same throughout of your adult life. So this is why the early years are so imperative. I think that's everything about environment. So just to recap, simple, ordered, accessible, so that the child has everything they need at their fingertips. This builds a sense of autonomy, a capability within them. When they feel capable, they naturally want to help others. When they're able to help others and make a contribution in whatever that way that might be, whether that's picking flowers, whether that's washing a window, whether that's mopping the floor, this builds them from within. And they get trust in their environment because everything is ordered where they expect it to be. They can trust and feel safety in their environment. They feel self-confidence from the order in the environment. And I think that's everything I want to say. And they get opportunities to learn practical skills. So moving on to moving on to interaction. So just move this. I can't see behind that. So our interaction, and let's start with Madeline's question first. So the way that, how am I going to explain this? I know what I'm going to say, Madeline. What I'm going to say is in answer to your question of how do we motivate a child without overly praising them? How do we motivate them? The great thing, the thing for us to all know is that a child learns unconsciously during the first 6 years of life. They are primed. One of the human tendencies, many of the human tendencies, are to learn, to explore, are to discover, are self-improvement. And so we don't ever need to persuade a child to do anything. They will do whatever their need is, wherever their interest lies. So what we do is we provide an environment that follows their interests, follows their needs. Earlier on in their life, I said that a toddler age between 1 and 3 is the golden age of practical life. So we know that quite a few children within the age of 1 to 3 will be really interested in cleaning, in practical life, in housework. So we set up the environment in such a way that this is really easily accessible to them. If they're not interested, that's absolutely fine. We'll find something else for them to be interested in. The point is that we don't try and make them do things that we want them to do because of our own agenda. The point is to observe them, see where their interests lie, and then they don't actually need any motivation. Their intrinsic motivation will come up because they will be so fascinated by cleaning the window, or if they're interested in nature, if they're fascinated by ants, they're going to want to learn all about ants because that's what their interest is. I think previously, in previous generations, we were definitely sold the idea that unless children are motivated or unless children have competition, then they become lazy. I actually heard that from somebody from the older generation. I'm not going to name names, but who said to me, children need competition unless they're lazy. Otherwise they become lazy. And that is, neuroscience tells us that is completely untrue, and actually it's more damaging for a child to be put in a competitive situation. It actually goes against so many of the values that we're trying to foster. So we don't want them to be in an ultra pressured competitive situation at all. They are unique. And that comes on to the next point, actually, is that in terms of our interactions, we celebrate their differences. We celebrate that each child is unique. You have two children. One might absolutely love cleaning or practical life, and one doesn't want to do it at all. And one of my friends, actually, she has two sons, and the older one absolutely loves to clean, and he's 8. And then the young one, who's 6, who's in my daughter's class, he doesn't want to at all. It's just not his thing. He doesn't want to clear up. He doesn't want to tidy up. He doesn't want help. And that's just where he is at the moment. But his older brother is really, really happy to do it. And she said it's really hard to just respect that that's what his preference is at the moment. And he does lots of other things. He's very creative. He does all sorts of other things, but that's just not where he is now. And that's what respecting and acknowledging and accepting our children's differences, that's what's really important for us to do. Accepting their individuality and putting what we want them to do aside, putting aside what we think they should be learning or think they should be doing, and just honouring where they are right now. And just that energy of, I love you for who you are. I love it when you fall asleep when I'm holding your hand. I love stroking your hair as you fall asleep. Just the little things, not because they're good or they're clever or they're well behaved or they ate their dinner or anything else like that. Just for who they are, that they are deeply loved and accepted and are making a contribution just for who they are. Just being them is enough. You are already enough. That is so much more powerful than any praise we can give, or any stars, or any rewards, or any certificates, or treats, or anything else. And I guess that's the most challenging for us as parents, because it requires for us to take a step back and look at our child really as they are, and maybe question whether we were ever looked at for who we were, or were we looked at according to our grades, or how good or bad we were, or things like that. So it's quite challenging for us as parents, because we need to recognize our child for who they are in front of us, and that means sometimes we need to look at our own stuff as well and think, okay, does this feel uncomfortable for me? Was I ever accepted completely in this way? So so this is why it can be quite a delicate one to get used to, and just little by little just sort of dive into there and see where it leads you. But for sure, accepting them for who they are and what their interests are. So for example, you have an older child who, I don't know, might be interested in something that you don't agree with at all. There's a book by Dr. Shefali called The Conscious Parent, and she tells the story of how her teenage daughter became really interested in models and modelling. And Dr. Shefali is a really strong feminist, and she really thinks that the modelling and haute couture and all of that lifestyle is not at all aligned with her values, and all and obviously all that superficiality. And so she really, really struggled to accept that her daughter was so interested in fashion and so interested in modelling. And she realised that it was just her own ego. She didn't want her daughter she thought she was such a strong female role model. She didn't want her daughter to be interested in something that she didn't agree with. And I thought that was such a beautiful example and a reminder that we must honour our child's interests, whether we like them or not. And it can be really challenging to do sometimes. So accepting their individuality, accepting their differences, accepting that they may not, that storybook that you've bought for them or that gift that you bought them for their birthday that you spent ages choosing, they might not actually like, and that's okay, because they're a different person to us. But it is hard for us to move into that space where we feel comfortable with that. So that's the first thing about interaction, and I hope that answers your question a bit about praise, Madeline. So we don't want to praise because that's external, and so we don't actually need to motivate when we're following their interests. So it's very much prepare the environment, simple, ordered, accessible, and see what happens. Notice, what do they go for? What do they not go for? What are they not interested in? Always show them how to clean the window or mop the floor. Okay, Diane, that's a great question. I'll just finish about praise, Diane, and I'll come to your question. That's really good. So the praise, we don't need to say. What we can say instead of praising, if I just give you a couple of examples, if they have done something like wipe the floor or put their bowl in the dishwasher or whatever it is, you can say, that was so helpful, thank you very much, that really made a difference to our community. Those are the three things that I say. Just thank you with a big smile. That really is such a help, with a big smile. That made such a difference in our community, with a big smile. If we are saying good job or bravo or well done or you're so clever, what happens is that that's us making a judgment, and no one likes a judgment being made of them. That's them being dependent on our praise in order to feel good about themselves, that their work is only of value when we praise it, which means as they get older, they're not going to be able to access any ability to self-direct and do things unless they are motivated by external praise or external rewards. And that's not what we want. What we want is to grow children who are capable and contributing members of society, who want to contribute, who want to give and grow and live a life of passion and purpose, just because they feel it within them, not because they're waiting for the next prize or pay rise or certificate or star of the week or anything like that. So that's the subtle difference, but very powerful difference between offering appreciation and offering praise. So I hope that helps, Madeline. And Diane's come up with a brilliant question. So your son wants to follow the big boys at the playground. How do I balance encouraging his self-confidence and getting him to realize he doesn't have the capacity to do the same and it's not safe for him? What I would do, Diane, is just shadow him. Say, acknowledge his need. You want to climb up the scramble net with the big boys or whatever it is that he wants to do. I'm going to come with you. Let's try and see what you can manage, or let's do that together. Oh, I wonder how high you can get. Because if you don't help him, if you don't put him into a position he can't get to himself, then there's going to become a natural level. Do you see what I mean? Where if they're running all over the place, then he's not going to be able to catch them up and he'll tire easily. Do you see what I mean? So that sort of naturally, he will find that balance. If he's going up a scramble net and you don't help him, you're just close by to support him and make sure he doesn't fall, then there's going to get to a point where he can't go any higher because he's little, he doesn't yet have the gross motor skills or the strength to be able to climb as high as them. Do you see what I mean? So there will be a natural balance that happens, but it means that we must just stay really, really close for support. And you can say things to him like, for example, let's use the example of a scramble net. Goodness, that's really high. How can we keep you safe whilst you climb that, or something like that, so that you're not saying be careful, you're not squashing his self-confidence, you're not telling him just go up there and leave him to his own devices. You're acknowledging that there is that it's right for him to be curious about how high it is, or how deep it is, or how tall it is, or anything like that. But you're going to stay there to support and to almost give him an opportunity to think about what his plan is. What's your plan? That's really high. What's your plan? How are you going to climb up that ladder? Something like that. So you're not discouraging him. You're not leaving him on his own, but it's hopefully a happy medium. Or you could say, if he's balancing on a wall and he's really close to the edge, you could say, oh, you seem really close to the edge there. Or have you noticed there's an edge there? Or something like that. So you're not correcting, but you're drawing his attention to something. I'm sure as you record and say things like be careful and stop and things don't help, because they don't actually tell the child what the danger is, and their perception of danger might be different to ours. So it's worth pointing out what the potential danger is. So you're very close to that wall, or that's very high, or you're up very high on that ladder. I'm going to stay close to keep you safe, or something like that. Say actually factually what's happening, and that might help. And let us know how you get on, and let his body decide for the most part what's right and what's not right. It's pretty rare actually, if they climb up to a climbing frame or up a tree and things like that, if they're able to get up themselves, then they're more likely to know what their natural limit is. If we get into the habit of putting them up high, like on a jungle gym or something, then they're not going to know what they're capable of. But if we let them go at their own pace, then that gives them a better sense of their body in space and a better sense of their capabilities. So moving back to interaction. Hello everyone. Hi Pascal. Hello everyone who's just joined. So our interaction in terms of building a strong sense of self-confidence, we've covered two aspects already. We've covered accepting their individuality, and we've acknowledging that they are different, a separate person to you, and their preferences will be different to yours, their interests will be different for yours. Just because you spend hours choosing a book or a gift for their birthday, they might not necessarily like it, and that may hurt as a parent, but they are a separate person and they are allowed to have their own preferences. And just being accepted and valued and seen as who we are is really so powerful. And then we moved on to praise and spoke a little about praise. Thank you to Madeline for her question. And we explained that if we want to acknowledge what our child has done, a task that they've completed or how they've helped out, then we comment on what they've done, give a description of what they've done, or that was so helpful when you wiped the floor so no one would trip over, so no one would slip over, or that was really helpful when you laid the table for supper, now we can sit down and eat, or whatever it might be, rather than saying well done or good job. Well done or good job, those type of external statements, they don't give the child any new vocabulary or a new way of expressing themselves, and it depends on us to tell them whether they've done something well or not. Whereas if we say a simple thank you for laying the table or for putting their shoes where they belong, then they understand that appreciation coming from us, and that's so much more powerful than it being externally imposed by us. The third point? Yes. No, the fourth point for interactions to build our child's sense of self-confidence and self-worth is a great quote by Dr. Montessori, which is, never help a child with a task at which he feels he can succeed. So that means that we must interrupt and interfere less, as little as possible. So if a child is putting their shoes on or practicing doing their buttons or getting dressed, we just need to sit close by and support and just zip it. Don't say anything. We don't need to say anything because they're probably concentrating. We don't want to break their concentration. We just can be close by for support, because if they're younger, they might get frustrated. I mean, Harry is almost 4, but still now, if he gets his head stuck in his t-shirt, there is a huge wail from him. So I do need to be close by in case he gets stuck and gets really, really frustrated, but I'm not going to interfere. We've got to just sit back and let them go at their own pace. And I trust that when he's ready for help, he's going to ask for help. And that's the same with, from even the tiniest, the smallest little piccolina, smallest toddler. Trust that they, whatever their skill level is, allow them to do that. Just observe until they need help. And when they ask for help, offer it to them. But just allow them that time and the space that they need to perfect their skill, or to try, at least try in their own way. And that's really, really powerful for them. So don't help them. Don't jump in to help or what we think is helping or supporting them. Just allow them to try and then stay close by to support. And then you'll see their body language when they need your help, or they ask for help. If they're a bit older, if they're, you know, over the age of 2, then they're probably going to ask for help. But under the age of 2, we can just be a little bit intuitive as to see what their body language is telling us. And if there's a big scream, then they might need some help. And then we offer the tiniest bit of help. So if they can't get an arm through the sleeve of a t-shirt, it's literally just pushing their fingers through and then pulling all the rest, and then when that's loosened, then they can do the rest. We just give that tiniest bit of help that takes them to the next level, the next bit of that skill. So that's never help a child with a task at which he feels he can succeed. The next powerful practice I wanted to discuss about our interaction with our children in order to build their sense of self-confidence and self-worth is giving the opportunity to make decisions. So decision making, offering simple choices, is a really powerful practice for young children. And this means a handful of simple choices per day for a young child. And simple choices is a choice of 2 things. And things like, would you like to wear the blue t-shirt or the red t-shirt, for example? Or would you like your fruit first or your cheese first? Very, very simple choices. Which shoes would you like to wear today? These ones or these ones? Very, very simple choices that show them a huge amount of respect, and means that they get to know what their preferences are, what their likes are, what their dislikes are. They get a really strong sense of who they are just from knowing what they like. They're being active members of their environment, not passive members of their environment. And that is so, so important for their sense of self and their sense of self-worth, because they get to realize that their opinion matters, their feelings matter, their preferences matter, their interests matter, they matter, all because we're just offering them simple choices in the very, very everyday moments in life. You know, it's not a fantastical choice. It's just very, very simple. You know, what are they wearing? What are they eating first? You know, what would they like for snack? Things like that. Very, very simple. But again, like all of these practices, they make a huge difference over a period of time, because it's building in this sense of what I want matters and my voice matters, and all those really, really everything that comes from within, and then they don't need it externally imposed upon them. Excuse me one moment, I'll have some tea. And what else would we like to say? Oh, yes. One of my favorite practices for building self-confidence and self-esteem with my own children and with children in the classroom is to allow them to problem solve for themselves and work through conflict resolution, learn about conflict resolution. And the way we do this, even from very, very young children, is we offer them phrases like, I wonder what happens now. I wonder why that has just happened. What can we do which gives them a question, gives them an invitation to solve the problem. So if the 2 children are fighting over the same toy, siblings are fighting over the same toy, or not necessarily siblings, it's you can see, the words that you say to them is, I can see you both want that toy at the same time. This is tricky. How can we solve this problem? How can we solve this? What resolution can we come to? And you can use those type of languages, those more complicated words, because they just become part of everyday life to our children. These concepts can seem quite complicated for a young child, but they understand very, very quickly that they're being offered this gift. And obviously with young children, we're going to need to stay close. We need to support them. And the first couple of times you might need to offer a suggestion. When the children were really little, I would always offer them opportunities to either use a sand timer, and I would say that Olivia's working with this at the moment, and Harry, you can work with it when Olivia's finished. And it was really, really hard for Harry, but he just had to wait until Olivia finished. Or sometimes with the sand timer, then they would then work it out themselves. Now, 9 times out of 10, at age 6 and almost 4, they work it out for themselves with a little bit of support from me, but they will say, okay, you have it first and I'll have it afterwards. But we haven't solved the problem for them. We're not saying you're right, you're wrong. You're not saying you have it and then you have it. You're offering them this invitation to really reflect. And the language you're using is, this is tough, isn't it? This isn't working at the moment. How can we find a better way? How can we find a different way? How can we find a compromise that you both agree on? So asking them, inviting them to problem solve with your support is something, particularly between siblings, which really gives them a strong sense of self-worth. Because again, like we were saying earlier about overcoming struggles, they get this feeling over a period of time that they are capable, that they can do things that are difficult, things that seem difficult at the time. If they overcome that hump, then they're on to the next level. So it's really, really valuable to allow them that space so they can overcome what they need to, and just give them and it's really hard to do because we don't want to see our children struggle. You know, I understand that. We don't want them to see upset. We certainly don't want to see our children fighting, that's for sure. And it's really, really hard. But if we can just stay close by for that support, and we can say, this is tricky, this is difficult, offering empathy in these situations, if it's say 2 siblings or children fighting, that's really, really valuable. You're acknowledging that the situation is difficult, but you're still offering them this gift. You're saying, this is hard, I'm here to support you both. How can we find a solution? In our house, we love a family meeting. Whenever there's a problem, I just call a family meeting, and then we talk about, you know, everyone has the opportunity to talk about whatever they want to talk about, what isn't working for them in the family at the time. And that's a really, really powerful way of conflict resolution that we find in our home. And as Olivia is getting closer and closer to writing, she's just forming her letters really beautifully and writing words really beautifully. She now wants to write loads of lists and things. So when we have a family meeting now, she'll want to write the bullet points of what we're saying. And that feels really, really powerful for her, because she's even more involved in that process of deciding what happens in the family, like being an intrinsic member of the democracy in our family. So of course she's going to have that feeling of self-worth, because she knows that her voice matters. She knows that she makes a difference in her community, and she knows that what she wants and her preferences matter, because we have that family meeting and we talk about conflict and we resolve things together. So that was point. I didn't number my bullet points, so I don't know which one we're on now. Maybe that was point 6 about problem solving and finding solutions. And with interaction, I think the last thing I wanted to say about the importance of the interactions with our child in terms of building self-confidence is to really save the word no for emergencies. And actually, by chance, this is the live that I did last week on saving our no for emergencies, and actually using positive redirection rather than correction in order to and so Madeline used the word earlier, in order to motivate our child, in order to redirect our child, then we can connect and redirect rather than saying no. And we use the word no only in emergencies, no or stop, when we really, really need to. When there's danger, when there's safety involved, we need to use the word no just to stop them. But we don't want to use it in any other situation. So instead of no roughhousing in the house or no roughhousing in the kitchen, we can say, let's go and roughhouse in the bedroom. Let's jump on the bed. It's not safe to do that in the kitchen. So we say something positive first, and we try to avoid saying the word no, because they don't listen to it after a while. And if we're trying to build a child with strong self-confidence and sense of self-worth, no just cuts them down. It doesn't give them any other opportunity. It's going to make them resist us anyway, but also it's, imagine us as an adult being criticized and hearing the word no the whole time. It would get you down after a while. It's the same for a child. We want to be ensuring that our interactions are positive and are focused on the child's experience, not on something external. So saying no a lot doesn't help their sense of self-worth. What can we do to reframe our language? So if there's something which is undesirable or inappropriate behavior, and that happens, that's a normal part of childhood, say something positive first in order to redirect. Tell them what they can do instead of what they can't do. And this brings us back full circle to what we started with, which was talking about the environment and telling a child what they can do instead of what they can't do. The foundation of this is creating a yes space at home, a simple, ordered and accessible environment which allows them to follow their needs and follow their interests and become a contributing member of the community. If we want them to contribute, if we want them to gain autonomy, if we want them to gain skills, we must provide an environment which allows them, which has all the tools or materials at their fingertips so they can get what they need when they need it. And whether that's cleaning a window, mopping the floor, or it's doing a painting or laying the table. Whatever is their need, their interest, we provide the tools for that at their height in a simple, ordered, accessible way so that they can do that. And this is how they develop self-direction. This is how they develop a strong sense of self-worth, because they have what they need at their fingertips and they can go and get it, and then they can perfect their skills in their own time. And what's that expression? Practice makes perfect, but it's practice in their own time. It's not us telling them what to do. It's them following their interests, following their heart, essentially. So, do we have any more questions before we finish? Hi, Grace. Sorry. Hi, Grace. Hi, Fatima. I didn't say hi to you guys. We've had lots of people come in this evening. If there are any more questions before we go, just while I'm waiting for you to write your questions, if there are any more, I would just like to tell you about, if you'd like to delve a little bit deeper and do an online self-study course on creating an enriching environment at home, the Montessori way, I invite you to go to my link in my bio, and there you'll find a link to my online shop where I have my latest online course. It's 6 modules of self-study, and each module is released per week. And so we every week you have a video, downloadable homework, and an affirmation to work with. And it builds on different skills in every module. You've got a foundation of Montessori, the environment, you've got language and communication, you've got self-discipline and positive choices, you've got rich language, you've got lots of different modules to dive into there. And so I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Do follow me on Instagram or on Facebook. Go to my website enrichingenvironments.com and to my shop if you're interested in my online course or any of my other workshops here in Dubai. All my workshops are live in Dubai and via Zoom if you'd like to attend. Thank you so much for joining. And hi Diane, and I've already had a question for next week's Top Tip Tuesday, a follower question, which is about a 22-month-old hitting. Started the dreading hitting, which is completely normal for that age group and does continue. And thanks, Pascal. So we'll talk about hitting next week. We'll talk about how we can support our child through this. As I said to the lady my client who asked this question, my son was a biter and he is still a hitter, and he's almost 4. He was a biter for about 6 months around the age of 2, and it was a really scary time for play dates and socializing at that time, but we got through it. And They just need a lot of support because their prefrontal cortex is not yet developed. That's for emotional regulation, problem solving and reasoning. So that's what happens, and their language development skills aren't yet there. The language acquisition isn't there, so they can't explain what they need. So the physical behaviour is completely normal. What we can do is support them so that it doesn't become just a habit. And we'll talk about that in next week's Top Tip Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me. I will put this on my feed as well for you to refer back to, and I will see you. So those are the two key things for helping our child establish their sense of self-worth and self-esteem from a very young age. And as we said, self-esteem is established before the age of 5. The two key things are the environment we prepare and the interaction with our child. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.